Hi, my name is Mark Ackroyd, Head of Advice Delivery, Strategy and Innovation here at Lumient. And welcome to Lumient Live, the podcast for advice professionals that believe in a values-based advice experience, but still have that question, how does it all work? The Lumient Live podcast connects listeners with other advice professionals to hear best practice client stories or business examples and lifts the lid on how they made it happen. Today, I'm joined by Sue Viskovic from Elixir Consulting. G'day, Sue.
Hi, Mark. Great to be here.
Oh, lovely to have you on board. So for those that don't know, Sue Viskovic is first and foremost a proud mother of four. She's also the founder of national consulting business Elixir Consulting, a popular speaker, a business coach, and an author of a number of books, research reports, and programs designed for advisors. Sue's an award-winning advocate for financial advice and small businesses. And Sue and her team specialize in helping advisors to improve their businesses with a firm focus on delivering better outcomes for their clients. Sue is also a non-executive director on the Lumient board, so we wanted to be transparent up front, but joins us today in her capacity as a business coach who has helped many advice businesses with their client engagement processes. So thanks for joining us, Sue, and we're really excited to have you on board because today we're going to cover off a few really important topics that I know our listeners will get a lot out of as they consider how to embed a values-based advice experience into their business. So we'll cover off things like how to decide what to use and how to go through that decision-making process, and then how to implement what they've ended up deciding. So if we start, Sue, with your experience, what you've seen, when you're working with practices, what are some of the things they've got to think through when they're deciding what they're going to use?
It's a great place to start, Mark, because I know values-based advice is one of those things that a lot of advisors love the concept of, love the idea of. They're really keen to move their conversations a little bit deeper than perhaps what the traditional old school advice method looked like. But it's on one hand, it's very new to them, and on the other, it's actually quite a natural conversation for them to be having, because most advisors, although they play in the numbers, most of them are people, right? They know how to have warm conversations with people. So it's a really good point that you made that I am on the board, and I might actually just touch on that too, because it's actually very close to this whole point about how do you decide if or what you're going to use as a tool. So I've been running Elixir for about 15 years. We've got 4 coaches around the country working with advice firms. We specialize in financial advice firms. And I would have to say that it would be about 80 to 90% of the firms, when we come in and work with them, we'll always analyse the business first and look at their big picture. And 80 to 90% of them would find that they're not 100% comfortable in their client experience, be it the onboarding experience for new clients or how do they deliver their ongoing services. And it's not just because more recently we've had to move to annual agreements and they want to make sure people are really convinced, but it's also the whole process. So what the client sees, how you get to build trust as quickly as possible, how you get beyond surface level conversation and into the real stuff. But it's also then the technology side afterwards. How do you collate data as best as possible? How do you reflect back the knowledge that you have of those clients? How do you keep them engaged with the strategies that you're recommending for them over time? And so pretty much for the last decade and a half, a lot of firms have actually worked with us to then unpack it and go, okay, well, right from the beginning conversation, when the client inquires, how do we handle that, and what gets sent out to them, and what can we do to improve that experience, and what are the conversations we're having, and then how do we gather the data? So it's actually a massive job to redesign that entire experience, as well as build in automated solutions with the back office to make the efficiency piece there, and to ensure that you're really delivering compliant advice and you're ticking all the boxes. And often firms get partway through and they're trying to build their tech stack and they're trying to do different things. And it's a hugely time-consuming process. And often they only get about half of what they would like to get because they don't even know where to look. And yeah, so it's trying to reinvent the wheel. I've been there, I've done it with so many firms for so long. So when Lumient came along and I saw what Santi and the team were building, and they invited me to come on the board, I jumped at chance because I absolutely know just what a challenge this is, and also how important it is. Because if we don't start really delivering to client outcomes in much more involved ways than just investments, the robo-investors are, that can be done very cheaply, very easily. So we've got to get better at this engagement. So the question being, where do you start? So if you're a firm that's looking at doing this, so I'm guessing people listening have already kind of got to the point of going, yeah, we don't love our process at the moment. We know we could do better. And we love the concept of values-based advice. All sounds shiny. Right, let's get into it. So the first thing I would suggest is get really clear on what it is that you're trying to create for your clients. The whole value proposition. What are you actually saying to people that you're doing for them? Because if it is saying, I'm going to help you live your best life, I'm going to help you make great decisions now and into the future so you can, live the life that you design, then that might be, you'd be looking at the tools through a different lens to, I'm the best investment manager and I'm going to get you a better return on your investment dollars that you park with me. And then you want to have a look at, well, what's missing in your current process? And I think I'd really encourage people to look through the lens of saying, whether I'm in a business that's got 2 advisors or whether I've got 20, it's critically important that you can create this systemized way of engaging with clients. And we use that language. You've got to systemize if you're going to be able to personalize at scale. Because too often we rely on the advisors sitting in front of the clients to be able to have good conversations, and ask any back office person or any paraplanner just how often file notes are quite lacking, because they may have had the conversation but they haven't captured it, or they didn't have the conversation this time because it went down a rabbit hole somewhere else and they didn't actually gather all of the information they needed. So to be able to have a structured set of conversations with a structured set of tools that all of your team are trained in using means that you're going to get this consistency, and that's really the only way that you're going to scale. And so when you're looking at, how do I decide if I'm going to use Lumiend or if I'm going to use another tool, or if I'm going to build my system myself and put my tech stack together, I really encourage people to be saying, how can I make sure that I have similar questions and I go to similar places with every client, and so too does every advisor. Doesn't matter who someone books an appointment with in this firm, they're going to get a similar experience, albeit a slightly different personality sitting in front of them. And the conversation itself, because it's so stylized and personalized to that human that's sitting in front of you, the conversations are of course going to be very different, but they're going to be cut straight to the core of what's really important to the client. So I think keeping one eye on that and being really clear about what you're trying to create. And I think also just have in the back of your mind this concept of scalability, because we know already that qualified advisors are, we're not building enough new ones to replace those who are leaving. We are going to continue to see a skills shortage in financial advisors. And so therefore wanting to create some scale so that each advisor can handle more clients, and that the client actually has, at Elixir, we use this term, a team serviced approach. So you want to ensure that the clients have touch points, not just with one single advisor in the business, that they have, there might be a CSM, there might be a client advocate, there's other people that they speak to, that they know that the relationship is with the firm, not just that one advisor in there. And so I think if you can find something that ticks all of those boxes, and ideally I would also suggest finding something that also can create training materials or has training materials for a great way to show your whole team how to use it properly, and develop those skills. Yeah, I think that's really important. And obviously, look at all of the details of it, the tech stack, how that fits with what you've got at the moment, making those decisions. Sometimes it might be that you're going to use all of the system from the get-go. Other times you might have something that's already working really well in your business, so you're going to plug that part in. Just be really clear on what you're wanting to achieve through the process, and that's going to make that decision a lot easier.
Yeah. So let's unpack maybe a couple of those to recap. Tip 1, be really clear on what you're trying to achieve. What's your value proposition? Tip 2, do a bit of a gap analysis. We always love that term in financial planning, don't we? Around, well, if that's the proposition I want, where is it missing in my current process? And your aims there is trying to build systems by the sounds of things, Sue, because I think your next tip was around keeping scale in mind, because whilst you may not be the big behemoth of a business you want to be right now, more and more client registers are coming up, more and more advisors are coming through. So we're seeing it more and more that you have to replicate your experience at scale so that clients can feel, as you put it, that they're team serviced or firm serviced within the practice. And lastly, considering training materials and tech stack as enablers of that. What's the so you're quite methodical in that process. Deliberately so, is it, Sue, that you start with the value prop first as opposed to maybe your current tech stack? What's the risk of doing it the other way around?
Well, because every decision that you want to make in your business has got to center around your client and what your promise is to them. So I skipped the bit that actually comes before the value proposition, and we talk about this all the time, is being understanding who you're serving. So who is your targeted clientele? We can't be all things to all people anymore, unless you've got a really big business with lots and lots of advisors that have different specialties. So it's critical, right? Because there are so many different ideas and solutions that you can look at in the market today. And it does get overwhelming because, I'm also incredibly mindful that anybody that's looking at making some changes in their business, in most cases, they're also in the business. They don't just have the luxury of working on the business. Yeah. So they've got a limited amount of time. So it is important to keep that focus of what is it that I'm trying to build? Who am I serving? What am I promising to be delivering to them? And being very honest when you then reflect on, am I actually delivering on the promises that I'm either making or that I would like to be able to make to people? Yeah, there's no accident there.
I would assume, Sue, that that's a really important unifying piece for if you've got multiple advisors that might have different backgrounds of how they were trained in advice, or maybe you've acquired a new business and they believe something a little bit differently. Getting this right can sort of unify everyone.
Yeah, absolutely right. It sure does. And it also has this beautiful result of kind of just cutting away the nonsense.
Yeah.
I was going to swear then. But, there's so much noise. There's so many things to be concerned about in advice. And when you really just cut down to the core of what have I promised my clients? What do I want to deliver? Then sometimes all those little rabbit holes we go down actually are a lot shallower, and we don't have to worry about them so much, because at the core of what we do, yes, we want to be compliant. Yes, we want to do all these different things. Yes, we want to increase the asset value of our business by their profitability and so forth. But at the end of the day, all of that comes when you deliver on the promises that you're making, and when you have a really good promise to make, because that's what people are buying when they come to see you.
Get the promise right first, then deliver on that promise.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's shift gears then. So say you do all that work, which let's not underestimate it. It's a mountain of work, which is
significant. Yep.
Which is what you guys.
You want to do your due diligence properly.
Absolutely, especially when you start applying your tech stack to it, because it could get super expensive if you don't get it right.
Yeah, exactly.
So you get all that right. Now's the time for the practice principal or the managing director to stand up in front of their team and go, this is how we're doing it.
Yeah. Hey, guys.
What happens there?
Well, the biggest piece of advice I would give there is understand, be very clear that you're about to go through a change management process.
Yeah.
And tackle it as such. Consider it as a project and ensure that you bring people, oh God, this is going to sound so wanky, I hate that term, but bring people on the journey with you.
I'm a sucker for the term journey. You're in safe company.
So you're going to want to embed this as your new DNA across the firm. So it means that everyone's going to have to buy into it. Everyone's got to be committed to doing it. And the key to having that happen, whether it be changing your client engagement experience like we're talking about now, or any other change that you want to make in your business, in order to get your team buying into it, they need to understand why. So if you, as the principal or the practice manager or whoever you are that's making this decision, if you bring your team along the thought process with you, ideally actually get them involved in the thought process at the outset, so that you're not just blindsiding them with something new and they say, oh, but I like something else that's shinier than that. Get them involved in the decision-making process so they've understood why, and then understand that it's not going to come naturally. It's any change. It's not like you're starting with a clean sheet of paper. You've never taken a client through your business before. So everybody's going to have been doing it slightly differently. And so therefore they're going to need to change some elements of how they do things. Now, what's really key to that too is that it's not just the advisors that are going to need to change, because you will have a different you'll be adjusting your procedures manual, your workflows and so forth will be slightly altered as well. So to empower your paraplanners and your admin support team, make sure they understand what's happening and get them involved. And usually it's actually not the advisors that have the detail kind of mindset around recreating processes. That's typically someone that loves their back office and runs the back office. So get them involved in rejigging your processes for how to take clients through. And I think get people excited about it, understand that the passion behind why we're doing this, because then when it does get a little bit tricky, or maybe a link doesn't work, or maybe someone's not used to which form to send to somebody or whatever, that's still okay, because it's a positive outcome that the clients and the business are going to achieve from implementing this. So one of the other things around that too that I think is incredibly important is whatever system you choose, if it's got really good training in it, absolutely embrace it, because there's for years we've lamented the fact that every piece of advisor training, well, there's two elements to this. Every piece of advisor training has been around the technical proficiency of delivering financial advice. There is very little in the way of training for people's, we call them soft skills, communication skills, understanding emotion, understanding human behavior, human connection. There's not a lot of training ground for advisors to explore that. And so I love the training sessions on things like values-based conversations, because advisors are actually able to try things out and test them and play with them in a safe environment before they sit in front of clients. And that's critical. But the other thing that we lament about training is there's very little training for back office staff. You go to any PD day conference, anything else, there's very little that's aimed at upskilling your paraplanners, your admin support team, your CSOs, CSMs. So this is actually, if you're going to implement something that creates some change in the back office, don't just expect that they can pick something up and run with it immediately. They're going to need
or they
some
know
training
how and why it fits, or
where it fits, exactly. So address it as a true change management process. Start by getting everybody on the same page and understanding why it's worth doing this. Have a project plan. So as you embed it throughout the business, think of the back office impact as well, and keep checking in on the progress that you're making. And something that I see people forget all the time is thank and encourage their people, sort of, celebrate the little milestones along the way as you're making changes and you're seeing the outcomes from clients. The advisors are going to be the ones that will hear the clients tell them, oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you so much. If you never share that with the back office, then they're going to be feeling like they're doing all this different work and there's no real purpose for it.
Yeah. So I think that's a really great point, because there's a lot to unpack there, but
I know, sorry.
let's unpack two things. So it sounds to me like, we're talking about the dreaded skills practice or role plays as part of training. And that's not just for advisors or support staff, but let's start with that. How important is actually leaning into that tough or awkward experience and doing that sort of soft skill work, as opposed to just watching a video and going, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. It's so important. And, nobody loves a role play. Nobody. It's the one thing that everybody wants to shy away from. You know, I think if they're told they're going to a training course, they're going to do that you know, they get a little bit sick that morning.
Yeah.
But
you find the furthest function room to go and do your skills practice in, so the facilitator can't find
so
you.
nobody hears you.
Yeah.
But do embrace it, lean into it, because people, it's very rare that you've ever been able to listen to yourself when you're interviewing a client or having a client conversation. And so, you know, I think actors do this. Anytime you can video yourself do something and then you get to watch it back later, even if no one else is there giving you insights or tips, even doing that yourself is incredibly powerful, because you go, oh my God, why did I scratch my nose when they said that? It looked like I was uncomfortable. Or, oh, I didn't even notice that he moved his arm there, or he looked at her. I didn't even pick up on that. And so the ability to reflect back on how you do things, we don't get to have that very often. And having anybody external to be able to give us some tips on that, it does require a certain level of confidence to be open to receive that support. But I think it's a really important part of our learning and growing as a person, is to be able to keep improving that. We get exams, we get CPD quizzes all the time on our technical knowledge. So yeah, you would expect that you would be able to improve that. But how on earth are you going to improve your human connection skills if you never get to learn and improve and reflect on how you do things? The other thing I love about that kind of training stuff is it's very rare that advisors ever get to actually listen to other advisors engage with clients. Because a lot of advisors have never actually been to see another financial advisor as a client, let alone sat in and listened to them speak to a client or take them through a process. So just because you've been doing something for 20 years doesn't mean you can't learn how to improve, or it also doesn't mean that you've actually had every single client scenario that could ever happen. You know, what happens if somebody breaks down? What happens if they start having an argument? What happens if somebody decides they're going to leave their job because there's no purpose there? I mean, you know, so many different things. So the human experience is so broad and varied. And I think if you ever get the opportunity to have somebody help you explore the way you have conversations and react to people, I'd say jump at it. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah. And, you know, everyone's got different backgrounds. And as you said, we'll pick up different things based on you know, past experiences they've had. And, you know, learning comes from everywhere, doesn't it?
Sure does. Does.
The other thing I love that you mentioned earlier about the change management process, so is celebrate the little wins. We can't assume that this is going to work overnight, but when it does work, let's make sure everyone knows about it so that we feel we're on the right track. It's a great tip.
And share that client feedback with everybody in the team. Don't just be greedy and keep it all to yourself.
No, the support staff equally would love to hear it, or anyone. So you've covered a lot. We always wrap up the Lumiant Live podcast with a little bit of a tip from our experts. For people that are, as you mentioned at the start, they're really curious. They think they want to do values-based advice. It's the next big shiny thing on their you know, FY22 project plan for their practice, but you know, they're a little bit nervous around where to start, or they're not quite sure. What would one tip be from you to those people that are thinking, I want to do it, but I'm not quite sure?
I would say, well, my first reaction to this would be do it anyway. And I think someone's already stolen that one.
Yeah, I think it comes up all the time.
Guest you've had. Yeah.
It hurts when we always interview advocates, because they're all like, we'll just do it.
Yeah, just do it. It's great. Yeah. Look, I actually think, don't be frightened of it. Because it's totally understandable to have a little bit of fear and trepidation about doing something so differently in your business. What if I get it wrong? What if somebody says something that's really emotional? I don't know how to handle it. You know, what if I'm not a psychologist? What if something comes up that any of those things, you will learn how to do it well. You will enjoy the conversations that you have with clients, and you'll also enjoy this ability for them to truly measure what is it that they, you know, how are you impacting their life, far more than, oh, you helped us pay the home loan off. It's you're lifting, you will see that you will be lifting their confidence and their happiness and their satisfaction in life. So don't be fearful of where it's going to take you, don't underestimate if you're already an advisor, it's because you're pretty good with people already. So it's not going to be as foreign to you as it might feel at the outset. You'll probably find you've got this real natural affinity for it. And yeah, just don't be afraid. Just jump in.
I love it.
Give it a crack.
Enjoy. I love it. Give it a crack. Sue, thank you so much for spending some of your valuable time with us today on the Lumiant Live podcast. To recap, we've covered, what you should consider as a practice owner or practice principal around changing your client engagement process. So thinking through your client value proposition, doing a little bit of a gap analysis on where it doesn't show up in your process now, getting your entire team on board, getting them excited, embracing things like the role play. In 25 minutes, we've gone through a ton, Sue. So thank you so much. I know the Lumiant Live listeners will be really excited to take those tips on board and implement that into their practice.
I hope I've helped. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Lovely as always, Sue. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mark. You too. Cheers.